Hey Ariel, thanks for meeting with me. What did you think of my paper?
Hey Christine, I looked over your paper and honestly, everything looks good to me. I didn't find any errors, so great job. What did you think of mine?
Well, no offense, but your structure was all over the place. The amount of run-on sentences was outrageous, and it kind of just sucked. You need to rework this a lot.
While both of these girls' feedback was well meaning, for the most part, neither was particularly helpful for the other. Instead of offering vague praise or unhelpful insults, it is important to be constructive in your peer review for the session to be most beneficial to both of you. Peer review is important because it allows students to clarify their own ideas as they explain them to classmates and as they formulate questions about their classmates' writing. It is a vital part of the writing process and continues at all levels of academia. Let's see how it's done.
The first step to a successful peer review session is to establish expectations and goals. The author will list their most pressing concerns at the top of the worksheet before giving it to the reviewer.
Great, so now that you've written down your most pressing concerns on the worksheet, I'll keep those in mind as I go through your paper. So let's get started.
Based on the introduction and the thesis alone, what do you think the main points of the paper will be? Do you have any questions about the introduction? Any suggestions for the thesis?
I highlighted your thesis and what I think your main points are. Based on what you have written, it seems like your main points are that the historical context and gender dynamics of the novel are centered around the house, which has other significance to those themes. My only question for the introduction would be, does your professor want you to provide a brief overview of the book first, or is it written for an informed audience? For the thesis, I would suggest using more active language to establish your authority as the author.
Next, read each paragraph's topic sentence. Does each topic sentence present a new idea or claim that relates to the thesis in some way? Make recommendations for which ones need improvement here.
So I highlighted your topic sentences, and I think you did a great job. All of your topic sentences present new ideas. There's one that doesn't seem to relate to the thesis as much, but maybe there's a way to reword it so it feels more connected to your main argument. How about we reword it and use some keywords from the thesis so that it all ties together?
I think that fits a lot better, thanks. Now read the whole paper. Revisit question 1. Having read the whole paper, what were the main points? Are these similar or different from what you thought when you read the introduction? Does the whole paper reflect the thesis and vice versa?
After reading your whole paper, I think the main points are mostly what I expected them to be. There's one point which added a new perspective to your argument that you didn't mention in the introduction or thesis, so maybe you could add that in so it doesn't seem like a surprise to the reader later on.
Definitely. I think that would make the paper feel more cohesive. What paragraph presented the strongest evidence and analysis? Why? And how do the body paragraphs integrate source information as evidence?
My favorite paragraph was probably your second one because you provided a lot of credible sources and personal analysis to really elevate your argument. You also used some really good quotes that supported your thesis.
Thank you. Next, address the author's concerns listed at the top of the page here. List specific ways they can improve upon them if necessary.
I think your concerns are valid, but I didn't see a problem with your organization. Once we made those slight changes to your thesis and topic sentences, everything seemed to flow a lot better. I also made sure to check your grammar and mechanics as I read through, and aside from a couple typos and a missed comma, it read smoothly.
Finally, list 2 to 3 things that this paper does well. List 1 to 2 things it could improve on. Don't worry, I know your critical comments aren't an attack on me as a writer, so I won't take them personally.
Your paper was really organized, and I could follow the flow of the argument. You also used a lot of great evidence to back up your claims from your sources, which isn't always easy. I would take a look at your citations to make sure your style is consistent and that your conclusion isn't just a repetition of your thesis.
Thanks, Christine.
Of course. So based on the feedback I've already given, do you still have any questions or concerns about your paper? What do you plan to work on in your revision?
I think that you addressed my main questions and concerns, which I really appreciate. In my revision, I will definitely be more conscious of the technical things and make sure that all of my points ultimately tie back to the thesis. I will also make sure that my conclusions shed lights on my main points in a new way rather than just rewarding my thesis.
Ultimately, the writer has the final say. At the end of the day, it is their paper, and they should decide what changes will or will not be incorporated according to their own voice. Thanks for coming to this peer review session, and hopefully you gained some valuable insight for your own peer reviews.
Happy writing!